recommendations in the context of the report, I think. So I'll hand over to Jane.
Thank you. I'll just briefly take you through this report. On page 1, the commentary on flooding has been superseded by the 2 reports on the agenda. There is a request for a formal resolution, as the Mayor pointed out on page 1, and that's around accessible cities. And we need, if I could ask you to formally approve proceeding to public and stakeholder engagement on Manchester Street, which is part of Accessible Cities that you signed off, I think it was last week or the week before, but we do need just a resolution to go out to consultation on this particular project. Do you want to do that now?
Yep, so
It's up there, on there.
sorry, it's not on the main screen yet. Yeah, it's 2.1 that Council approved proceeding to public and stakeholder engagement on Transport Project 4 Manchester Street as part of the approved first phase programme projects. Phil Clearwater will move that and Tim Scandrip will second it.
Thank you. And I'll just move through the rest of the report on pages 2, 3...
Or should we deal with that first? Deal with that, so we'll get it. So is there any discussion or comment on that? Ali?
Can I make a comment around the rate emissions?
No. This is just on the getting this issue. So if there's no discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. And we should probably go through the report and come back to the second recommendation. As usual, in the rebuild and recovery section and in the other sections, any changes from last time are highlighted on red, in red. I think we've finally got a commentary that made some sense in terms of the art gallery facade, so I've included that one in there. Just moving through. So if there's no questions on... Yep.
Yanni? Avon River Precinct.
Page 3 at the bottom.
Yeah, so what I'm struggling to understand is why we can't get detailed design stages that are already in construction underway, detailed budgets and detailed timelines. And when can we get the actual details? Like, it just seems weird that work is already happening. I know we've had some stuff back from staff at a conceptual level, but we've had no detailed design of the current work that's happening, full budget, full time frame.
And I think this is a Sarah-led project, and we've passed the question on, and I understand you're getting briefings on these regularly.
I don't want really briefings. I want a concept. I want to know what the detailed design is.
Okay.
And I think council should, it's our land. We didn't actually sell this land to the Crown. We allow them to do things on it. I find it unusual that we cannot get detailed designs before the construction starts. And we kind of get no opportunity specifically for input on the detailed design.
I'll pick up on that again. I know you've asked it before.
Yep. David?
Just on 4.3, the infrastructure rebuild, page 9 and 10. Page 9, I just sort of note in the non-skirt expenditure, we're still sitting pretty low. At any particular reason why we're not ramping up some of that expenditure? Or? What
we're doing with that one, it's part of the prioritisation now, and it was always the... It's part of the horizontal infrastructure, but that includes things like the land drainage programme, so we're still scoping up what is to happen, but it will come before council
Thank you. And on page 10, confirmed handover complete. Quite a low percentage of construction completed handover in some areas, and that does impact on us in a lot of areas. So, are we getting any progress in actually handing over some of these completed assets?
As officers, we're unhappy with this as well. We've brought it to SCIRT's attention. We're getting better progress, and the we are Peter Gudsall and myself. We've got a process in place to see this go up by the end of June, and we're now getting weekly reports for Peter and I to see how this is progressing. So it is a priority.
Yeah. Particularly when we see things like wastewater 38% completed, but only 6% handed over. And the same with stormwater, 52% and only 2% handed over.
These figures will have improved since this report. We have told SCIRT it's not good enough, and we've got a focus on it.
Thank you.
Ellie?
I just wanted to ask, page 5, earthquake memorial, key dates. Do we have any dates here? We'll be writing the council on the result of the occasion. Just wondered when that's going to happen. Location, switch to location when you're going to know that. Could we find out a little more, please?
Yes, we can get an update for.
And I just wanted to reiterate to page 1, middle of the page, the specialist 3-member team that's been set up in the customer call centre. Can I just clarify that all calls and applications are taken to the rates remission team and that the decisions are not made on the phone at the front desk? And I just want to make clear that I will be encouraging, certainly in our ward, that anyone and everyone who is out of their house as a result of flooding should get the details in ASAP.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yep.
Jimmy?
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions. The first question is regarding to the 4.1, the 4.2, the major facility and anchor project. I'm wondering whether, as a governance role, whether staff can prepare the kind of master schedule, include some of the major items, for instance, like if an insurance claim or negotiation, what time period, or site investigation, what time period, or concept design, detailed design in the constitution, etc. for each project, because this all the major important project, we need an overall view to review whether it's ahead of schedule or behind the schedule, then have a status and key dates, etc. Otherwise, difficult for us to see the overall picture. I'm wondering whether can prepare this one or not.
There is work in progress to try and put in place a governance structure over these for the governance body, you as elected.
But whether council, we are entitled to get this information. Okay. Second, regarding to the individual project, the Southwest Area Hub, the new Southwest the service center library replaced the shutdown the Suckburn Service Center. I remember previous months, last month, the staff information were presented to the community board and also the council in May, but right now it's June, but I didn't see any in May. It looks like serious behind the schedule, especially the site investigation, has been undertaken since the September 2012 up to now has been 21 months. I asked for several times. I didn't get any the information, and each time they just change the status. Actually, that's kind of serious behind the schedule. So whether the staff can present to the council table more clearly why this site investigation takes so long for 21 months.
I'll pick that question up and follow it up. And could I just say, the Mayor's just pointed out to me on page 5 on the question on the earthquake memorial, we have had a letter, and I should have included that. Yeah, so I'll circulate.
There is a letter just confirming the positive response of the First Knowledge Group, and also agreeing to establish a governance structure over the top of it for all major decisions in relation to it, which would be myself as Mayor of Christchurch, the Minister for Canterbury Earthquake Recovery, and I think the Minister for Culture and Heritage, and because it's a national memorial, and I think Mark Solomon, the kai whakahaere for Ngāi Tahu. So that's what they've come back with, which were the two considerations that we wanted to have met in order to agree to the matter proceeding. So I will now write back to Sarah and advise that that is acceptable and that we are good to go. Yep. Tim and then Glenn and Vicky.
Jane, just following on the Avon River precinct and other things, if we could just staff emphasise to Sarah that if they could give us as good information as possible on the ongoing OPEX of these projects, which will be handed back to us ultimately, because we need to know as soon as possible, I think, what those are going to be once they're handed back. And it's kind of, yeah.
Yes, we do, and our staff work on that too, because it will need to be included in plans going forward.
But we've got to be able to cover the design life at least, so thank you.
Glenn?
Thank you. It's probably not lost on a few of us that the Sarah budget for the Avon River precinct, 50 million, is actually what we need for Flockton. And I just wonder, the council's own budget was about 5 or 4, but I just wondered, have you noticed, Jane, whether there's been a change in emphasis in light of everything that's happened to kind of more of a flood mitigation rather than sort of sprucing up this part?
With regard to the Avon River, I haven't noticed any change.
I think that they did, when they presented to us on it, we're now having regular briefings, so when they did present to us, that was a question that was asked. So, but I think it is important to keep an eye on it, but they did indicate that it didn't make the river any worse than it was, so, and that they would have gone further if it hadn't been for the flood risk, so yeah, it's Vicky.
The CDC, especially on the innovation ecosystem, could we just have some indication from CDC whether they ever intend to get out into the community with enterprise facilitators, so that the 300 business mentors that they have are actually known about and people can access them easily? And also, could we have a look at the work that they're supposed to be doing on the innovation ecosystem in Christchurch? Thank you.
Yeah, CDC have only just taken back over the business mentors. It hasn't been their function.
Yes, they had 300 free business mentors for quite a number of years.
No, it's been out of their ownership and back again. It's only a recent readjustment. It is. So, but I'll catch you up on it. All right. So now we've got a mover and a seconder that the report. Oh, sorry. Did I miss someone? David.
Oh, no, I was just going to move.
Okay. No, I've got a mover and a seconder. Councillor Clearwater, Councillor Scandrett. Yep.
The point that Tim made, I think, is really important. What we know from our initial briefing is that there's a hugely expensive portion of the Avon River precinct being constructed right now, and what we don't know is what is the operational cost. So that's why I'm kind of thinking that if we don't get detailed design before construction starts, and have no understanding about what the operational impact is, we're going to end up in a rather unpleasant situation. So can we get, even if it's just a memo back, what is the anticipated operational cost for the stages that's currently being constructed and that has previously been constructed for council? So, I mean, that should be known now and we should be able to see it.
But I mean, this was one of the limitations of the 3-year budget. Doing a 3-year plan meant that the OPEX never showed up,
No,
not
it
for
was-
any of the anchor projects.
That's not
Quite
correct.
well
We were
known.
told that it was factored in, and it was factored in at 5% of the total operational budget. So there was money put aside to take into account the whole
It
central
wasn't
city.
obvious from what was written in the 3-year plan that that was the case. So, but anyway, the acting chief executive has undertaken to follow up again with Sarah to try and get some more additional facts and figures on all of those matters.
Question I wanted to ask around the anchor projects is we're now seeing all these big billboards going up, particularly around things like the Avon River, and as we drive to council, that's obviously got a huge cost, and I'm really concerned that we've got Sarah coming to community boards to fund community development type, take a piece of cake next door because they've got no funding, and yet we've seen a huge amount of money being spent on communications, on big giant billboards, telling people what we already know is happening in the city. So I don't know if we have any joint up communications plan with Sarah, but I would kind of make the point, can we actually look at requesting them not to spend so much on the communications, given that it does seem rather superfluous at times?
No, I would be completely opposed to not having billboards up showing people what's going to come, because I think it's absolutely imperative while we're in a state of rebuild that people have an idea of what was there and what is to come.
So my suggestion, and we could save a lot of money, probably hundreds of thousands, is put the billboards on the public land that we own around where those sites are being developed. But renting private billboard space at a huge cost seems superfluous.
Well, I'm happy to follow up on private billboard space being hired, but I'm really unhappy about the idea that we wouldn't want to communicate with people about what is being
Absolutely.
developed.
I support having really good signage on site for where the works are happening and in public, but I just can't understand why hiring huge private billboards should be a priority, given our
Well,
financial.
they're obviously very effective because I've never seen one. So, right. So I'll put the motion that the report be. That the report. No, we haven't had the report be received. We did 2.1, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yes. So if we could have a mover and a seconder, and that was David East, and seconded by Phil Clearwater. I'll put the motion. No, don't touch that one. Go down and just say that's carried. Say that. Oh, that one's carried, right, okay. So this is now David East and Phil Clearwater. And I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried.